Well, welcome back. Later today, all members of Congress will be briefed by Trump cabinet members on the U.S.'s intervention in Venezuela and the arrest of dictator Nicolas Maduro. The classified briefing coming a day before a potential Senate vote on a resolution which would curb President Trump's war powers. I spoke with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul on this program yesterday. Here's why he said he's backing that resolution.
I'll vote yes because, our founding fathers debated this. They debated whether or not the initiation of war, the declaration of war, should begin with Congress, with the people, with the people's representatives, or whether or not it should be left to one person. This was a long and very public debate. I think bombing another nation's capital and removing their president is an act of war. Anybody who argues otherwise, I think, has a very difficult argument.
The president is now weighing the use of military to acquire the Danish territory of Greenland. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt writes this yesterday. President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States, and it is vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. Joining me now is Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles. He's a member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, what are your thoughts on this? The president has talked a lot about Greenland, and now it seems that his thoughts are materializing. He's not weighing, he's not excluding the potential use of military here to acquire Greenland.
Well, I've got the bill, Make Greenland Great Again, which would, quite frankly, allow us to acquire Greenland. I don't think military action is going to be necessary. I quite frankly think, I've met with delegations from Greenland. They want to have a better, stronger relationship with the United States of America. And when you look at the incursions, north of Greenland by Russia, by China, the Danes can't protect that region. We can. It should be a territory of the United States. And I support President Trump. And like I said, and quite frankly, like Rubio said, military action won't be necessary. Quite frankly, Greenland wants to be a partner with the United States.
So make the case, Congressman, why is Greenland so important? Is it just simply the geography, its nearness to Russia and China?
Absolutely. When you look at the resources that are available, the potential for drilling, and the passage of military assets in that region, as you see the area, the sea becoming more more traversable, it's important that we have a stake in Greenland, that they are quite frankly a protectorate of the United States, and not they've been in participation or a relationship with Denmark. That needs to end. Denmark, we have spilt more blood. The United States of America has spilled more blood protecting Greenland than the Danes have. We have a greater vested interest in Greenland than, geographically speaking, than the Denmark, the Danes have. And so when you look at the Monroe Doctrine, when you look at the Western Hemisphere, we are the dominant predator, quite frankly, force in the Western Hemisphere. And that speaks to Venezuela, where I'll take odds with Senator Paul, my friend, quite frankly, is that, you had a dictator who was poisoning and killing Americans. And the President of the United States has sent a clear message. If you were complicit in killing Americans, we are going to come for you. And it was a military action, but it was on behalf of the United States, the American people, and our law enforcement capabilities.
Well, what can you tell us about that? Because the president addressed House Republicans at the Trump Kennedy Center yesterday. He tried to lay out the GOP's election year agenda and the consequences should Republicans lose the leadership in the House and Senate. Watch this.
So together we had 12 months of unprecedented success in 2025, and now we're going to make history and break records with the epic midterm victory that we're going to pull off. It just doesn't seem to happen for people that win the presidency. It's an amazing phenomenon. You win the presidency, and we sure as hell are having a successful presidency, I will say that. You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be... they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
What about that? What do you expect?
Well, I think, quite frankly, that we're going to defy history, that we will, in fact, not only win the midterms, I think there's the opportunity to pick up seats. And here's why, is we're delivering on the promises made by the president, by myself, as I campaigned across the district, and other members of Congress have campaigned. Look, you're going to see further interest rate cuts. You're going to see the economy booming. You're going to see no tax on tips. You have a secure border. You have deportations as promised. We're locating getting those 18,000 some odd terrorists in the United States. We're going after the Somali fraud. You know, go down the checklist of promises made by President Trump, by myself, to the American people, and we're accomplishing those tasks. That's what the American people want. They want action. They want to see real, consequences for fraud, real consequences for coming into this country and stealing, real consequences for those countries that are, incurring, United States sovereignty and our areas, our spheres of influence.
Yeah.
And so I think the American people are going to respond to that. And I'm cautiously optimistic. Look, we have to go earn it. We have to continue to deliver. But President Trump is following up on his word to the American people, and we are winning across all spectrums.
Let me ask you about the Freedom Caucus, because the House Freedom Caucus leadership sent a 7-page letter to House Speaker Mike Johnson outlining their conservative policy goals ahead of the midterms. You're a member of the House Freedom Caucus. What do you want to see?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I'm on the board of the House Freedom Caucus. Most of us, quite frankly, on the Freedom Caucus are very close to the president. Again, when you look at the executive orders, we want to deliver and start codifying those executive orders. Let's stop the frivolities. Let's not be distracted. Let's focus on the mission of the American people. And if we deliver that, real jobs, real economic outcomes for the American people, restore law and order, and again, secure the border and deport those who are here illegally, the American people are going to respond. And the billions of dollars in fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota, you can multiply that because we're seeing it in Texas, we're seeing it in Florida, we're seeing it in New York, we're seeing it in California. And so those are monies that should be going to American kids, to American soldiers, not to illegals who are coming here to defraud this nation.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're waiting on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has declared Friday, January 9th as an opinion day on the first day back from their 4-week break. Are you expecting that we're going to hear from the Supreme Court on their opinions? The opinions will be unsealed shortly after 10 a.m. on Friday. I'm wondering if this opinion has to do with the IEEPA tariff constitutionality. It could be. Or we could get it by the end of the month. What is that going to mean in terms of the refunds and the tariff revenue?
Yeah, to be determined. This is a complex issue.
Yeah.
I think we've seen historically where tariffs have been good, but there's a downside to tariffs if they're not managed properly. I think the President of the United States has done an exquisite, excellent job with tariffs. You're seeing reshoring jobs coming back to the United States, manufacturing coming back to the United States. When you see it, really the business landscape in Europe and in other countries is not as conducive and friendly as it is here in the United States. So these tariffs have been weaponized, but in a good way, because it's on behalf of the American people. So look, when you talk about securing the border, when you talk about deportations, when you talk about the tariffs, this is all for the American people, for the American economy. We're winning, and we're going to continue to win under the leadership of President Trump.
It looks like any expectations for Affordable Care Act subsidies is sort of fading at this point. Is there any renewed enthusiasm there? Where does that stand? I know the president spoke about this yesterday as well.
Yeah, I don't know if enthusiasm is the right word, but clearly health care is broken in this country. We've got to fix it. And you can't take a Band-Aid approach. Look, a lot of the subsidies were COVID subsidies.
Right.
COVID is over, quite frankly. So we've got to get back to the math. We've got to make it, solvent. We've got to make the math work. Otherwise, it's going to go away. And so, look, the reason why you have socialized health care in Europe is because we are the Defense Department for Europe. We are the Defense Department for so many of these nations. And so they invest those resources that they would otherwise spend on their own defense on health care. And by the way, it's crappy health care. If you're in Canada and you have the resources, you come to the United States for health care. If you're in Europe and you have the resources, you come to the United States for health care. So we have an amazing health care system. We just have to fix it and make it work for patients and for the American people.
So you think you can do that?
Well, you know what? I ran for this job to find solutions and to fix problems, and that's what we're going to work on.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work. Good to see you this morning. Thanks so much. Andy Ogles on Capitol Hill. We'll be right back.